To discuss how our growing diversity is affecting our businesses, leadership structures, communities, services, and much more, I have in the studio with me Beth Johnston. She is Senior Vice President for Human Resources at Delta Airlines, and Dr. Obie Clayton, Chair of the Department of Sociology at Morehouse College. Thank you both for being here. I appreciate your time on the show. Pleasure to have you. There's a report that's come out from the U.S. Census Bureau, and it says in roughly 30 years, a little longer, there's going to be no majority racial ethnic group any longer here in the United States, and certainly not here in Atlanta. What does that mean? What does that shift mean?
From a political standpoint, there'll be more coalitions among the different ethnic and racial groups that we're beginning to see now during this election year. There'll also be some challenges too, because many of those immigrants that will make up that population, English is not their first language, and right now fully 50% admit that they don't speak English that well. So it means that schools will be challenged to recruit bilingual teachers, counselors. Police departments will be stressed to fill their ranks with ethnic minorities also, and that list goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think we're suited? Do you think Atlanta's suited for the change, for this shift?
I do, and I just wanted to add a couple of things to Obie's point about the change it means for Delta. It's absolutely a change with all the languages that are required to serve our changing customer base as well as the employee base that we'll need. It also means opportunity. People that are coming to the United States want to go home and want their families to come here. So there's lots of opportunity as well as a lot of changes in our policies that will enable us to be serving those customers so that they're comfortable on our airline and going around the world.
Obie, project forward, if you will. Politically, how does the landscape change over the next 30 years?
The city of Atlanta is becoming whiter. We're talking about diversity right now, but we're beginning to see more whites moving into the city. That will change a little bit in the sense that they will be more, whites will be more active in the local politics than they have since the 1980s. Now we move to certain areas such as Chamblee, which is right up the road here, that has a large Latino population. Unfortunately, even though they have the numbers in that city, that group is not voting. But what we'll begin to see in the next 30 years is that group mobilizing and using those resources.
What is our ability to embrace this shift do for us globally as a destination or a place to do business? What does it mean for us to be able to do it and do it well and position ourselves well?
I think it means that we are the international city that we desire to be. People go where they're comfortable, where they enjoy being, and so we have to be a city, a business that is welcoming, and we need to have that perspective of being open and receptive to the differences.
Is there anything that we're not doing now that we need to be doing that would position us better globally?
That's a tough question. We're beginning to see changes such as signs in different languages in public buildings. That needs to be there. We need to work a little more on our transportation, and I will hit that point, and I'm talking about public transit, because the majority of the new group of people that will be moving in, a car is fairly foreign to them. Whereas we grew up with them, we find that a lot of the newly arrived immigrants rely heavily upon public transit. And I think that is one thing that we could do to make it a little friendlier. Most of our immigrant growth occurred in the period of the 90s when we were getting ready for the Olympics and when we actually hosted the Olympics. So we more than quadrupled that population. So we must be doing something right, because people came, stayed, and kept coming, And
I think that's one of the things that makes Atlanta such a great place. I mean, we've been a role model city and growing and dealing with change, which I think is what this is the core of what we're dealing with.
Ideally, 30 years from now, if you're going to paint your Never Never Land for Atlanta, what would we look like as a very culturally diverse population welcoming the world?
I think one of the things that we wouldn't have is a lot of panels talking about diversity. I mean, that's my dream, is that it's so innate to who we are, open to the world, that we don't think about our differences as our first foundational component. I think there is this transformation of becoming truly a global city. It will take time, it will take structure to make sure the intentionality, but over time, that's my dream, is to get to that destination that we're all comfortable with as citizens of the world, and make other people feel that way as well.
I agree with Beth on that. Panels like this are necessary, but hopefully 30 years down the road they won't be. But one thing I'd like to see as we move towards becoming more of an international and global city, I'd like to see is less racially segregated, more integration. You'll always have your ethnic and your racial enclaves, but I'd like to see it a little, you know, what's the right word? More diversification in residential housing patterns.
Rather than an African American neighborhood, a white neighborhood,
a Latino, an Asian or Indian neighborhood.
I have to say, I have lived in neighborhoods in the metro region where I had Latino and Asian and Middle Eastern and African American all on the same street. I was just on my street.
Yeah.
They exist, but they may not be as plentiful as you prefer.
They may exist, but you can probably count them on one hand.
The opportunity is there for more.
Right. And that's one thing that we have discovered here when you begin to look at housing patterns in the metro area. Still, the overwhelming majority of African Americans will live, what do we call it, south of I-20. Asians primarily right up 85 into Gwinnett County. Latinos, the Beaufort Highway corridor right there. So we're extremely segregated when it comes to housing patterns, which has a lot of implications to the composition of your schools and so forth. So I'd like to see a little more than that, or more streets like the one you lived on.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure to have both of you on the show.
Very nice being here. Thank you.
Again, thanks for the invitation.
Of course. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Atlanta Regional Commission's Shape of Things to Come. I hope we provided you with a sneak preview of the changing face of our Atlanta region. For more information about this topic or about ARC's 50 Forward initiative, please visit www.atlantaregional.com. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.